In this video, we're going to be taking a look at 4.3, what operations are needed. In this section, this is where everything that we've been doing in this whole unit kind of comes together, and we use a little bit of everything to solve some problems. And so on a lot of these, make sure you read and understand the question first. Like for example, on part A. And you want to come up with a plan. It says 3 friends are going hiking with Letitia. That makes 4 people. There are 4 hikers. She buys 2 bottles of water. So 2 bottles of water and 3 packs of trail mix. Okay. Now remember, there's 4 hikers, so keep that in mind. She's not just buying for herself. The water costs $1.50 each, and the trail mix costs $3.75 a piece. Okay, so you're answering questions, for example, in the first one, it has to do with going out through the checkout lane, which doesn't have anything to do with the cost or the price, just the number of items. So go ahead and try each one of these and come up with a plan before you begin and kind of write down what your plan is, and then go ahead and execute that plan. So try these on your own and then come back to the video. So if we take a look at the first one, remember, she's buying for 4 people. And so when she's buying the water for 4 people, 2 bottles apiece. For the trail mix for 4 people, 3 packs of trail mix apiece. Now we're using these properties. Now I implore you to try to use some of these properties that we've been studying and don't just jump right to the answer. All right, think about, okay, what have we learned so far that I can rewrite this? Well, I know that they both of these terms have a 4, so I can factor that 4 out. So it's 4 times 2 plus 3, which is 4 times 5. And so she's got 20 items. So no, she cannot go through the express lane. And then on the second one, this is where you really want to write it out. So I did it in part A, but 4 times 2 plus 4 times 3, this is where you want to actually show your work. Because in the first one, you might not have needed to do this, but make sure you can put down some of these properties, learning to use the properties, even though it seems unnecessary. Because later on, when we solve more difficult problem and you don't understand the properties in simple context, how in the world are you going to use it or apply it in a more complex context? And then C, write a different number sentence that shows a different way. And again, I have it all right up here. There are 2 different ways. So here's a number sentence that shows one way, and here's a number sentence that shows another way. All right, so in part C, you're just showing 2 different ways if you didn't do that in part B, since this says just write a number sentence. And then D, explain how you know which operations to use. Well, in this first one, right here, I know that I'm going to multiply first. So if I do the first one, let's do it down here, I know I'm going to take 4 times 2 first. That would give me 8, plus 4 times 3, that would give me 12, and then that would give me 20. In this second one right here, I know that I'm going to simplify inside, so that would give me 4 times 5, which is also 20. Okay, using the order of operations, but you see we get the same answer. And then in part 2, Letitia has $60. Does she have enough money to pay for this? So depending on how you went through and solved this for 4 people, remember that's 4 people. Each person gets 2 bottles of water, which is $1.50. And then each person gets 3 snack packs or trail mix packs, and each one of those is $3.75. Okay, so here's our expression that we could set up, and we could simplify inside. So the first thing you would do is you would multiply 2 times 150, that's $3, and then 3 times $3.75. So this is where you could use a calculator with the tedious operations. I'm not testing how well you can multiply decimals, right? So 2 times 150, you shouldn't need that, but 3 times 375, you could use a calculator there. But the sum of those ends up being $14.25, right? And that's a total for 4 people. Don't forget that this is, you're buying for 4 people, and each person is going to need to put in $14.25, and that's a total of $57. So yes, she will have enough. Okay, on B, Mr. Chan buys a roll of paper towels for $2.19 and window cleaner for $2.69. So let's go ahead and highlight some of those. Paper towels for $2.19, window cleaner for $2.69. There's also a 4% sales tax. He also buys a gallon of milk. There's no sales tax on the milk. Mr. Chan has a $5 coupon. Lots going on here, right? So write a number sentence to find Mr. Chan's total bill. What is his total bill? Number 2, is there more than one way to compute his total? 3, explain how you know which operations to use. Go ahead and try to answer these, thinking about how tax is added on to those first 2 items. Go ahead and try to answer these and then come back and see how you did. So the first thing we would do is look to see if we can't set up an expression. And so for example, right here, this part right here, that represents the paper towels and the cleaner. This over here, you have the paper towels and the cleaner again being multiplied by 4%. Okay, so all of this right here, that will give us what 4% of the total for the paper towels and the cleaner was. All right, so you have the paper towels and cleaner plus the sales tax. And then the $3.95 was the milk. There's no sales tax. It's straight up $3.95. And then minus 5, that's the coupon. So there's our number sentence. And then we can use that then to simplify and find the amount for his bill. Now remember, when we're doing tedious operations like this, you have to take the 0.4. And first of all, we would add these together in here. We can use a calculator to do that. You add those together, then multiply by the 0.04. That'll give you something like, I think it's like 19 cents or something. I don't remember off the top of my head. But when you do that and then add the $3.95 minus 5 plus this amount, you should have ended up with $4.03. Because that's the discount right there. Okay, and then that would be our total. And then on number 2, are there more ways? Absolutely. There's multiple different ways. Like one, if you add the $2.19 and $2.69, I'm going to show you something. So let's just get it to look like this. 488 plus 0.04 times 488 plus 395 minus 5. Now, if you look up at the first 2 terms, you have the 488 plus 0.04 times 488. Those 2 terms both have a 488 in common. So we could literally, just like what we've been doing, we could factor it out. It's like dividing both terms by 488 when we factor it out, because now it's out front. So 488, and then 488 divided by itself is just 1. That's just 1, but you would have 1 times 0.04. Okay, so that's one way to rewrite it there. There's multiple different ways. This is just one other way using the rules, the factoring rules that we've been learning, and you will still get $4.03, no matter how you do that. And then on the last one, explain how you know which operations to use. Well, just do order of operations, right? Like on this first one up here, we would do what's inside first. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted the highlighter. We would do what's inside first and then multiply by 4.88. Then you would take all of that, add 395, take all of that, subtract 5. Okay, just following the order of operations, you would do what's inside the parentheses in that case. Go ahead and try this next one with fundraising. Now remember expenses, these expenses right here, those are negative amounts because those are costs. And then the amount raised, those are positive amounts. So just keep that in mind as you work on this. Pause the video, try it on your own. So in the first one, writing a number sentence, you just put them in, right? Because all of these right here with negatives in front of them, those were the expenses. And with the positives in front of them, that's what we were able to raise. And then when you figure out, add all of those together, combine all of them together, you should end up with $56.60. Right, so that's how much they raise. Can use two different orders of operation? Absolutely, because look, you have all of these that are negative and all of these that are positive. So you could write all of these that are positive, so you have all of your positive ones minus all of your negative ones being added together, right? So it'll look something like this. Right, so you have all of the amount raised right here. Those are positive amounts. And you're subtracting away the sum of all of the expenses. So there's just a different way to do this. And then on part C, explain how you know which operations to be used. Well, here we could, what I would do is add all of these together. Then that would give you a number. And then start adding left to right until you get here. Then you would subtract. Right, still following the order of operations, but doing what's inside the parentheses first. Okay, and then on D, coming back to at the beginning of the student, we learned about the Math Fever game. That's when we were adding, subtracting positive and negative numbers. So write a number sentence to find each team's score, who is ahead, by how many points. Can you use a different number sentence? So go ahead and answer these, pause the video, and try them on your own, and then come back and see how you did. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Here's the number sentence. I just wrote them as they are. Negative 50 plus 150 minus 100 plus 250 minus 150. And then for the other one, I just wrote them as they are. And then when you add them all together, combine positives and negatives, they end up being 100. So each team is tied. And then, well, they're tied, so 0 points. But then on part 2, can you use a different number sentence? So here's the thing. There's many different ways you could do this, right? Looking at like for example, the first one. If I look at the first 3 terms even, where right here, I'm looking at these, you have negative 50 plus 150 minus 100. Let's just look at those. Remember, my goal in life is just to make things as simple as possible and to think as little as possible. All right, so right here, you notice that you have negative 50, negative 100. Those add up to negative 150. So then you would have negative 150 plus 150. And so those end up canceling each other out right there. Then you have 250 minus 150. That's 100. So since you're adding all of these, right? If you add them, you make this plus a negative, think of them as negative numbers, then you can add them in whatever order that you want. Like for the second one here, right there, negative 100 plus 100, those will all cancel out. 250 minus 150 gives you 100, right there. So there's multiple number sentences that you can set up here. But think smarter, not harder. And then lastly, on this one, water is flowing in and out of this water tower. If there are 5,000 gallons to begin with, so 5,000 to start, how much at the end of the entire time period? So you would just set up a number sentence, and your number sentence would start with 5,000. Right? And then water does not flow out at all for the first 4 hours. But for the first 4 hours, the water flow, it's flowing in at 5,000 gallons per hour. So it's 5,000 gallons per hour. And then for the next one, it's 4,000 for 7 hours. And then you notice it's flowing out, so that's a minus for 3 hours at 7,500. And then on the last one, it's both flowing in and flowing out. So it's going to be going in at, for 6.5 hours, 5,000 gallons per hour. And then also for 6.5 hours, it's flowing out at 3,000. Okay, so there's our number sentence. Go ahead and set up and solve, and then answer the questions from there if you haven't done this already. Go ahead and try to answer the rest of these questions, and then come back and see how you did. Okay, in the last one, this should be minus 6.5 times 3,000. But when we plug this all into the calculator, you should end up with 43,500 gallons of water when you start with 5,000 in the tank. And then the number sentence, this is my number sentence, so make sure we jot that down as well. Number 2, what's the average rate of water flow per hour in the first 11 hours? So on that one, you're going to look up here and think, okay, the first 11 hours, so 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you're only looking here for those first 11 hours. So it's 5,000. Come down here. This is 2A. For 4 hours at 5,000 gallons per hour, we have to figure out how much water total and then divide that by the 11 hours. Then for 7 more hours, it was at a rate of 4,000 gallons per hour over 11 hours. Then when you do that, again, put that in your calculator, that's 48,000 over 11. So that's 48,000 gallons per hour over 11 hours. The hours will actually end up canceling and giving you just gallons. So that's 4,363 and 2/3 gallons per, so that's just gallons per 11 hours. So the rate is gallons per hour, yeah. So 4,363 and 2/3 gallons per hour after the first 11 hours. And then for the last 9.5, so that includes these right here. So you have a negative, so on B, it's -3 because it's flowing out. 7,500, so it's flowing out for 7,500. So on this one, it might make more sense that the 7,500 is negative, but it doesn't really matter because it's still a positive times a negative. And then you would have for 6.5 hours, so we could kind of skip here because for 6.5 hours, right, it's both flowing in and out. So if we find the difference, 5,000 minus 3,000, that's 2,000. So after 6.5 hours during that time, it's flowing at a rate of 2,000 gallons per minute because it's going in faster than it is coming out. So we could write it like this. Just put that 2,000 in there. And then that is over, what did it say, 9.5 hours. Okay, and then we're going to calculate, that's negative 1,000 gallons per hour for that last 9.5 hours. Then part C, at the end of the entire time period, what was the average rate of change? So then we would do all of this. So you would find all of it, and what did we get on the first one? 43,500. So 43,500 gallons and a total of 20.5 hours, and then you would divide those, divide by 20.5, and that ends up being about 2,121.95 gallons per hour on average. Hour, singular. All right. So the last one's kind of tricky, but still you're just looking at positives and negatives, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So these were the notes for 4.3, what operations are needed.